The courtroom fell silent. Reporters froze. Cameras pointed straight at the bench, because what the judge said next would shake not just Atlanta, but the entire hip-hop world. For years, fans have been asking one question: will Lil Durk ever be free from the shadow of King Von's case? And just when everyone thought the story was over, a bombshell update turned everything upside down. This wasn't just another legal twist. This was the kind of revelation that could rewrite how the streets remember OTF, Von, and Durk forever. Because behind the music, behind the fame, and behind every lyric filled with pain, there's a truth that's been buried deep. And now, that truth is finally coming to light. Sources inside the courthouse revealed that new evidence, sealed for years, has resurfaced. Files that could clear Durk's name or pull him back in a fire. The judge's new ruling caught everyone off guard. Fans, lawyers, even people close to ODF. What was supposed to be a quiet hearing turned into a media storm that's got the internet losing its mind. But before this story makes headlines everywhere, let's take it back to the night that changed everything. The night when King Von and Lil Durk's loyalty was tested in the most dangerous way possible. From Atlanta streets to Chicago blocks, whispers turned into warnings, and those warnings became cases. This isn't just about legal papers and courtroom drama. This is about friendship, betrayal, fame, and survival. The judge's shocking decision might not only decide Durk's future, it could reopen wounds that the rap game tried to heal for years. So stay locked in, because what you're about to hear isn't just another news story. It's the truth that was never meant to come out. The real story behind the headlines. The untold updates the media won't show you. Welcome to Rap Shock, where we uncover the stories behind the silence. And today we're breaking down the bombshell update that's got everyone, from fans to feds, asking the same thing. Is this the moment Lil Durk finally gets justice, or the twist that changes everything? The courtroom lights were dim, and you could almost feel the tension in the air. Everyone knew today wasn't just another hearing. It was the day, the one that could decide the future of one of hip-hop's biggest names. Lil Durk sat quietly beside his attorney, his face calm, but his eyes heavy with the kind of pressure only he could understand. Cameras outside flashed nonstop, and social media was already on fire. The words "bombshell update" were trending even before the judge opened his mouth. But before we dive into that shocking courtroom moment, let's rewind, because to understand how we got here, you need to go back to where it all started. Atlanta, February 2019. That night changed everything. It was supposed to be just another evening out for Lil Durk and his brother-in-arms, King Von. Two brothers bound by loyalty, fame, and a dream that started in the streets of Chicago. But somewhere in those late-night hours, chaos erupted. Shots were fired, people scattered. And in the middle of it all, the names Lil Durk and King Von got pulled into something far darker than music beefs or rival block talk. Police claimed the duo was involved in an attempted murder outside the Varsity, a popular Atlanta spot. Surveillance footage, witness statements, and ballistics, all the ingredients for a high-profile case, were suddenly tied to Durk's name. The streets started whispering. Durk and Von caught a case? The internet exploded, but inside OEF, silence ruled. Nobody spoke. Nobody snitched. Because that's not how family moves. Fast forward to 2020, tragedy strikes. King Von is gone. The streets cry, the internet mourns, and Durk's world collapses overnight. But even with Von's passing, the case didn't die. The charges stayed hanging like a dark cloud, and the system wasn't done yet. Durk kept making music, kept feeding his fans. But behind the success, behind the platinum records and sold-out shows, he was fighting something way bigger: his freedom. Now, years later, after countless court delays, sealed documents, and silent hearings, the judge finally spoke. And what came out that day changed everything we thought we knew about the case. According to insiders close to the courtroom, the judge dropped a bombshell ruling. Certain evidence that prosecutors had once called key proof against Durk and Von was now being re-examined. Reports suggest that the judge questioned the credibility of a few witnesses, people whose statements had built the foundation of the case. Some of those testimonies didn't line up anymore. Some evidence didn't even match forensic reports. It was like the case had holes that no one wanted to admit existed. The defense jumped on it immediately. Durk's lawyer argued that his client was being tied to street rumors, not solid proof. He reminded the court that Durk had turned himself in voluntarily, had never run, and had maintained his innocence since day one. Meanwhile, the prosecution tried to push back, claiming there was still enough to proceed, but the judge wasn't convinced. And then came the twist. The judge announced that new sealed files, held for nearly 2 years, were finally being unsealed. Inside those documents, details that could either clear Durk completely or open the case wider than ever before. Nobody expected that move. Even reporters in the front row froze. Phones went silent for a moment, and then social media went crazy. Hashtags like #FreeDurk and #OTFCaseUpdate started trending again. Fans wanted answers. Was the case collapsing? Was Durk finally walking free? Or is there something darker hidden in those sealed files? What makes this moment even more powerful is how far Durk has come since those early ODF days. From losing brothers in the streets to losing Vaughn, his right hand, to standing in courtrooms with the world watching. Every lyric he's dropped since then carried pain, truth, and warning. He wasn't just rapping anymore. He was surviving through music. But survival has a cost. Fame can't erase your past. And in Durk's world, every win feels like a test from the universe. As the judge's words echoed through that courtroom, you could see it on Durk's face. That mix of relief, confusion, and disbelief. Because for the first time in years, the system that once painted him guilty was now questioning its own evidence. This wasn't the end of the story, not even close. It was the beginning of a new chapter in a case that refused to die. The judge's decision had opened a door everyone thought was locked forever. And behind that door lies the truth that could change the entire narrative about Lil Durk, King Von, and what really happened that night in Atlanta. The tension in that courtroom didn't fade, it multiplied. When the judge mentioned those sealed files, even the lawyers paused like they needed a second to process what they just heard. For years, those documents were locked away, protected under legal code. Nobody, not the press, not the fans, not even some people in ODF, knew exactly what they contained. But now the moment had come. The seal was lifted. The truth was about to hit daylight. When those pages were opened, the courtroom fell into absolute silence. Inside were transcripts, police reports, and surveillance breakdowns from the 2019 shooting near the Varsity. But the shocking part wasn't what the files showed. It was what they didn't show. The prosecution's case was built on 3 main pieces. Witness statements that claimed Lil Durk fired a weapon. Video footage that allegedly captured the shooting. A stolen Jeep said to have been involved in the incident. But here's where everything started to fall apart. The new report showed that the video footage was incomplete. Key angles were missing. Some of the camera timestamps didn't match the official police timeline. And the ballistic report? It showed that multiple guns were fired that night. But none of the shells matched the weapon prosecutors once tied to Durk. Even crazier, one of the witnesses, who had previously testified under oath, had changed his story again. He claimed that what he said in the first statement was influenced by police pressure and confusion during questioning. Basically, his words couldn't be trusted anymore. Durk's lawyer stood up, his voice steady but cutting through the room like a blade. "Your Honor, this case has been built on broken bricks. It's not justice to keep a man chained to uncertainty when the evidence itself doesn't hold weight." The judge nodded slowly. No reaction, but everyone could feel it. Something had shifted, and in that moment, Lil Durk didn't speak. He just stared straight ahead, expression cold, mind racing. The same man who's faced death, betrayal, and pain more than most, was now watching the law start to crack under its own pressure. Outside, the world was catching fire again. News blogs, hip-hop channels, and Twitter threads were blowing up. Durk might walk free. Case falling apart. Judge questions evidence. The whole internet was back to doing what it does best, guessing, debating, spreading theories. But the streets? The streets were whispering something different. People close to Vaughn, close to OEF, were saying this was bigger than a case. This was karma, finally setting the record straight. Von's name had been dragged through too much mud. The man who lived and died for loyalty was being cleared, not by words, but by the truth itself. A clip leaked later that day, a short moment from the courtroom where the defense team mentioned Von's loyalty and Durk's voluntary surrender. The fans went wild. That's what separated Durk from a lot of other rappers. He didn't run, didn't hide, didn't fold. He faced it head-on, like a man who knew the system could bend but not break. Meanwhile, prosecutors tried to regain control. They requested additional time to review the inconsistencies in the new documents. Translation? They needed time to figure out how to rebuild a collapsing case. The judge agreed, but made something very clear. This court will not continue to pursue a case based on unreliable or tampered evidence. Those words hit like a bar from one of Durk's own tracks. And that's when you realize this whole story, this entire case, wasn't just about who fired the shot or who was there. It was about a system that often judges people before the facts even speak. Von may be gone, but his name still echoed in every line of this case. Because when the world tried to make OTF the villains, it forgot something. Behind every rapper, every tattoo, every lyric, there's a human being fighting to be understood. Durk's fans called it divine timing. His haters called it luck. But those who really knew the story understood. This wasn't luck. This was persistence. Years of fighting a quiet war in silence. As the hearing ended, Durk stood up. The cameras flashed, questions were shouted, but he didn't respond. He simply looked up for a second, then walked out surrounded by his team. Outside the courthouse, his car door shut, and he was gone. No statement, no tweets, just silence, the kind that makes people listen harder. But make no mistake, this silence wasn't fear, it was power. Because the truth had finally started to work in his favor. And that's the part that's driving everyone crazy now. What else do those files reveal? Are there more names involved? More twists yet to come? The judge's ruling might have opened Pandora's box. And the next court date could decide the biggest question of all. Will Lil Durk walk out completely free? Or will the past come calling one last time? When the news broke, OTF's world lit up like a storm. Phones were ringing non-stop, DMs blowing up, and the internet spinning out of control. Everyone wanted answers, but the truth was, even inside the OTF circle, nobody expected that bombshell from the judge. In the OTF camp, there was a strange silence mixed with energy. Some were celebrating, some were cautious. They'd seen too many good moments turn bad before. In a rap game, especially when you come from the trenches, victory never feels final. There's always another headline waiting to flip the script. Durk was at the center of it all, quiet as ever. He wasn't online, wasn't dropping statements, just moving in silence like he always does when the stakes are high. A few people close to him said he didn't even want to talk about the case anymore. He just wanted to move forward for Von, for his kids, and for the people who still believed in him. But inside his circle, emotions were heavy. Von's name was back in the media again, and not for his music, but for a case that should have been closed with his passing. For Durk, that hurt more than anything, because Von wasn't just another rapper, he was family. People forget, these two came from the same blocks in Chicago, from the same dirt. They weren't industry friends, they were brothers who had each other's backs long before the fame. When Von blew up, he didn't switch sides. He lifted Durk even higher. When Durk got hit with the case, Von stood right beside him. That's loyalty, the kind the world rarely sees anymore. So now, with the judge questioning the case itself, Durk felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. But that hope was mixed with pain. Because every time his name trends, Von's ghost shows up too. The OTF crew gathered that night at Durk's spot. No flashy vibes, no cameras, just real talk. They sat around, talking about how far they'd come and how dangerous fame can be when the world's watching every move you make. One of them said, quietly, "If Von was here, he'd be smiling right now. He'd say, 'I told y'all bro's solid.'" That hit different, because everyone knew Von was that kind of guy, the type to defend his people no matter what. The type who'd walk into chaos for his brother. That's what makes this story so heavy. The courtroom drama isn't just about evidence, it's about legacy. Outside the ODF circle, though, the industry was reacting too. Bloggers, hip-hop pages, even other rappers had something to say. Some sent love and support. Others threw shade, hinting that Durk's fame was protecting him. But what they didn't understand was, this wasn't about power or money. It was about the truth finally speaking after being buried for years. Meanwhile, Durk's music streams shot up again. Every line he ever rapped about pain, betrayal, and fighting demons started to hit differently. Fans began connecting the dots, realizing that many of those bars weren't just songs, they were real-life cries for peace. And that's what made this moment bigger than any court decision. Durk had already been judged by the streets, by social media, by the world. But now, for the first time, the system itself was beginning to see what his fans have been saying all along. He wasn't the villain they painted him to be. In private, Durk's lawyer told him to stay patient. "We're not done yet," he said, "but we're close." Close. That word kept replaying in his head. Close to freedom, close to closure, close to finally putting years of fear behind him. But there was still that little voice in the back of his mind, the one that never forgets where you came from. Because in the trenches, nothing is ever truly over. You win one fight, and another one's waiting. You clear your name, and they still test your loyalty. Still, this time felt different. The judge's tone, the evidence shifting, the witnesses folding, all signs pointed toward a new beginning. This was about two men caught in the middle of a world that didn't want to let them escape. Durk stayed quiet. His legal team went in a lockdown mode. Every move, every statement was being watched. Even his close friends were told to keep their distance from online talk. But silence only made the world talk louder. Meanwhile, the court documents revealed something shocking. One of the supposed witnesses had been paid for information, money traced back to a confidential informant fund. That revelation alone flipped the case upside down. If even one witness was compromised, the entire case could crumble like dust. The judge ordered review, not just of the case files, but of the entire process. He wanted to know why so many inconsistencies existed, who handled the chain of custody, and why certain footage disappeared before it ever reached the defense. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence anymore. It was about accountability. Outside, the rap world was split in half. Some artists showed love, sending support privately. Others threw slick comments online, scared that if Durk truly walked free, the power balance in the industry would shift again. Because whether people like it or not, Durk runs influence. His story, his music, his pain, it moves the culture. And now, with this case turning in his favor, that influence was only getting stronger. Fans called it divine justice. They said Vaughn's spirit was finally moving through the truth, forcing it to surface. And maybe they were right, because one by one, the lies were falling apart. Then came the next bombshell, a small line buried deep in the documents that mentioned a mystery car scene leaving the scene that night. The car wasn't registered to Durk or Vaughn. It was tied to someone the court had never named publicly, a third figure that could completely shift the timeline of the event. Who was this person? Why hadn't their name come up before? The internet ran wild. Conspiracy theories flooded TikTok and YouTube. Some said it was an inside setup. Others said it was a distraction. But inside ODF, the team was calm. They'd learned not to believe rumors. They knew the truth was finally working its way through the cracks. Durk's lawyer released a short, professional statement. "We remain confident that Mr. Banks will be fully cleared. The evidence speaks for itself, and the truth cannot stay buried forever." That one line, "The truth cannot stay buried forever," became a viral quote. Fans started tagging it under Durk's old photos with Vaughn, turning it into a digital symbol of loyalty and justice. As the pressure built, the prosecution began losing ground fast. The case that once looked airtight was now full of holes. Witnesses backing out, evidence missing, motives questioned, and that's when the judge made his second bombshell move. He ordered that parts of the investigation be turned over to a federal review panel to check for misconduct and mishandling. That kind of decision almost never happens. You could feel the shift. The balance of power had changed. For the first time in years, Durk wasn't on defense. He was on the verge of victory. Still, behind the cameras and headlines, Durk remained the same, quiet, cautious, focused. He wasn't celebrating yet. He knew too well that in this life, freedom isn't guaranteed until it's written in ink. But one thing was clear. The system that once tried to define him was now being forced to face its own flaws. The same system that labeled him guilty before trial was now questioning its own integrity. As the sun set over Atlanta that evening, Durk's lawyer walked out of the courthouse and simply said, "Next hearing, final arguments." Those two words, final arguments, felt heavier than any lyric, because this wasn't just a legal fight anymore. It was about clearing a name, clearing a legacy, clearing the bond between two brothers, Lil Durk and King Von, that no lie, no case, no courtroom could ever destroy. The next hearing would decide everything. Would the judge finally close the case for good, or would the past rise one last time to test Durk's fate? The day of the final hearing felt like the end of a long movie. The courthouse in Atlanta was surrounded by flashing cameras, heavy security, and crowds chanting one name, Lil Durk. Fans held signs reading "Free Durkio" and "For Von." Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder waiting for the moment that would decide years of uncertainty, pain, and speculation. Inside, the courtroom was tense. You could hear the hum of lights, the clicking of pens, and the quiet shuffle of papers as the judge walked in. Durk sat at the defense table, wearing a black suit, calm, focused, and unreadable. The same kid from Chicago who'd once dreamed of making it out was now sitting in front of the very system that tried to pull him back in. This was it, the final verdict. The prosecutor made his last attempt, painting Durk as a man surrounded by chaos, fame, and violence. But his words felt empty. The energy in the room had shifted since the bombshell revelations. Then came the defense. Durk's lawyer stood, steady and precise. His voice echoed through the room as he said, "For years, my client has been fighting for his life, his name, and his truth. But today, the evidence, or the lack of it, tells a story of its own. Lil Durk did not commit this crime. The witnesses lied, the files were flawed, and the truth has finally come to light." He paused, turned slightly toward Durk, then looked at the judge. "It's time to end this chapter. It's time to let this man live." The judge leaned back, flipping through papers one last time. The silence was suffocating. You could feel every heartbeat in that room. And then it happened. After reviewing all evidence, testimonies, and findings, the court finds insufficient grounds to proceed with the case. All remaining charges against Durk Derek Banks are hereby dismissed. The words hit like thunder. For a second, nobody moved. And then, like a wave, relief spread across the room. Durk exhaled, just once, the kind of breath you hold for years. He didn't jump. He didn't shout. He just looked down, whispered something under his breath, and then looked up toward the ceiling. Maybe it was a prayer. Maybe it was for Vaughn. But everyone in that room knew what it meant, freedom. Outside, fans screamed. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #DurkCleared, #JusticeForVaughn, and #OTFStronger took over every platform. Even the people who doubted him were forced to face the truth. Lil Durk had finally beaten the system. Back at OTF headquarters, it wasn't about celebration. It was about peace. Durk sat with his people, surrounded by the same brothers who'd been there when the world turned its back. They talked about Vaughn, about loyalty, about surviving everything they'd been through. Durk picked up his phone, opened his notes app, and started writing. No caption, no statement, just lyrics. Because for him, this story wasn't over. It was just another verse in the legacy he and Vaughn started together. And somewhere out there, the streets that once doubted him were now shouting his name again. Because when the dust settled, Durk didn't just win a case, he won respect. Not the kind bought with fame, but the kind earned through silence, pain, and truth. The industry started reacting fast. Rappers sent messages of love. DJs started spinning his old tracks again. You could feel it. The energy had changed. The voice of the streets had spoken again, louder than ever. Durk later posted a short message online. "We stood tall. We lost some, we gained some, but we never folded. Long live Vaughn. OTF forever. That post broke the internet. It wasn't just a win. It was a message to everyone watching. No matter how heavy the truth gets buried, it always rises. And that's where the story leaves us. Not with chaos, not with pain, but with victory. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is peace. But here's the thing. This story isn't just about Durk or Vaughn. It's about everyone fighting to be understood, everyone chasing freedom in a world that tries to define you before you can even speak. And that's exactly why we tell these stories. Because here at Rap Shock, we don't just report the headlines. We break down the truth behind them. We give you the real side of hip-hop, the loyalty, the pain, and the redemption that mainstream media can't capture. So if you've been riding with OEF, with Vaughn, with Durk, and with every artist who had to fight for their voice, this moment's for you. Stay locked, stay real, and always remember, this is Rap Shock, where the streets speak and the truth gets loud. And that's the truth the world needed to hear. Lil Durk walked out of that courtroom not just as a free man, but as a survivor of pain, loss, and loyalty tested through fire. The story of King Vaughn and Durk isn't just about music. It's about brotherhood, destiny, and the fight to stay real in a world built on lies. If you felt this story, if you still ride for Vaughn, and if you believe the truth always wins, then you're already part of the family. 100 points. This is Rap Shock, where we don't chase clout. We chase truth. Every beat, every headline, every hidden story in the game. We break it down for the culture, for the streets, and for the fans who never stop believing. Hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe, because the next truth we uncover might just shock the world again. High voltage.